Hello, dear ones. Today I'd like to talk about the affirmation that we've been practicing in our daily meditations and at different times in this era, in this time frame of spring of 2020. It's the Warrior of Light affirmation. And it goes, God's light is within me and around me. With the sword of faith in my hand, with the love of God in my heart, I am a warrior of light. I join my brothers and sisters everywhere to overcome fear with faith, hatred with love, and disease with health. Let us fill the world with God's light. And I thought to touch on some of the aspects of this because the image of being a warrior may sort of feel like it runs counter to the spiritual life in some way. And I know for myself, I came from a very pacifistic mindset in my youth, and I was determined, in the era of the Vietnam War and so forth. I thought, there's no way I would ever, touch a gun, go through the army, blah, blah, blah. And my family was fairly supportive of that attitude, and it never came up. I was too young to be drafted. I missed that era by some years. But that mindset sort of followed me onto the spiritual life when I encountered the idea that life is a battle and, we have to marshal our inner forces. It's not a given that we are going to just march or, sort of sail gleefully into the infinite, into heaven. We have to climb that mountain, and it's a step-by-step process. So the idea of being a warrior of light, to me, means that we recognize that the battle is inside. It's not about fighting some outward enemy. But here's the interesting thing. The imagery goes, with the sword of faith in my hand. What does that mean? The sword of faith in my hand means that I recognize the sword of faith is the sword of discrimination. It's the ability to separate truth from falsehood, what is uplifting from what is downward pulling, denigrating, and to operate that in our lives for ourselves, not so much to impose it on others. That is a very slippery slope to walk down, and one that religion down through the ages has come afoul of, because once we try to impose something on other people, we try to forcibly convert people, it just doesn't work. People have to come to this in their own way, in their own time. We can inspire them, perhaps, but to start twisting people's arms, in the guise of leading them forward on the path to freedom, that doesn't really work. So we recognize this is the life I've chosen to lead my own forces, my inner forces of light, to deal with the darkness that I see around me and that I find inside of me from time to time, and operate that faith. Faith is actual realization. It's not theory. It's not mere belief. Belief is a nice beginning, but it's a terrible ending, because we can believe all sorts of crazy things. We can believe that the sky is going to fall, and it's unlikely to. So we have to learn to believe what is actually true and then begin to operate in the knowledge of what is true, in the knowledge of how truth operates in our lives. So that's the sword of faith in my hand, with the love of God in my heart, is the next line. And the love of God in my heart means I recognize that this world is my family. That there's nobody I need to be up against. There's no person, even the people that I don't like, that I don't appreciate, that I am threatened by, even those people are still God's children. And so with the love of God in my heart, I join with my brothers and sisters everywhere to overcome fear with faith. Now that means we're gonna, and especially in these days, we're gonna run into people who are very afraid, who are very much threatened by the uncertainty, the change, the loss, perhaps the loss of a loved one or loved ones, the loss of a job, the loss of a certain path in life that we had visualized for ourselves. And where do we go with that? That's where it takes compassion on our part to help other people, to have a broad enough view to help others overcome fear with faith. We have to have that faith. We have to have that realization in ourselves. We can't give away what we don't have. But if we do have it, then we can share that lovingly, not coercively, but lovingly with others. So overcome fear with faith, hatred with love. And there again, when you're dealing with people who are afraid, they're going to be afraid of other people. And what does fear of other people lead to? It leads to hatred, it leads to violence, it leads to all kinds of awful permutations. And we have to overcome that with love. We cannot overcome that with force. We may defend ourselves with force, but we can't overcome hatred with anything but love. That's the implication of that. And disease with health. Well, of course, now we're dealing with a virus, which creates a disease. But we also have to recognize that the real viruses, the ones we have to concern ourselves with, are viruses of consciousness, viruses of fear, viruses of negativity. And I mean, if you think about what is a virus, science tells us a virus is not even a living entity, and yet it reproduces. It's like an example of will made manifest at almost the smallest level that we can visualize. It's this tiny, tiny little bit of DNA that gets encapsulated in, I think it's fatty acid, and then it replicates, and it perhaps, changes. There are mutations that come later on. It adapts. So, I mean, there's a level of consciousness connected with this thing. And we have to overcome that in ourselves, in our, strengthening our immune system and so on. But we also collectively have to strengthen our immune system. A friend shared a wonderful image for this, because in my mind, and I think it's kind of human nature to think, what is an immune system? An immune system is our defenses. And so it's easy to think of the immune system as like this castle wall. And it's like, okay, everything that's bad, stay out there. But an immune system is actually that which allows us to assimilate, allows us to deal with and relate to. It's really, in a very real sense, our immune system is like that sword of faith. It says, okay, this part is good. I accept it. I encourage it. I nurture it. This other, no, that's pulling me down. That's negative. That I will eliminate or I will push aside. I will not let that into my consciousness. And we learn to deal with the world on a very practical level. In the final lines of the affirmation, let us fill the world with God's light. That means to shine the light of understanding, the light of wisdom, to help other people to see clearly. When we walk around in a fog, when we walk around in darkness, we smash our heads into things, we trip over things that we didn't know were there. We just run into all sorts of trouble that is immediately alleviated or eliminated by the light. As soon as the light is there, it's like the whole picture becomes obvious. Okay, now I know what I can do. Now I know what I need to do. Let me move forward in life with light, and let me try to share that light with others. Swami Kriyananda named the higher level of ministers of Ananda, he named that position light bearers, bearers of light. And he basically said, you have to try to consciously share light with people. Be a bearer of light. Be yourself illuminated, but also try to share that light with other people in a very natural, very organic way. So that's what we all can do. We can all try to, yes, be a warrior of light, but working with that battle on the inside. That's really where the battle lies. And then, yes, it expresses outwardly through our lives, but we're not fighting anything outward. We're fighting what will bring light and illumination into the world. God bless you.